I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thanks for taking the time. We have Bret Dunlap, who's going to give us a brief education on YesLender and the merchant cash advance industry. Bret's going to go over the pros and cons of what's needed, how it should work, and how to maximize profits and minimize risk. I want to let everybody know that CamaPlan does not give tax or legal advice. CamaPlan does not endorse anyone or give investment advice. We encourage you to work with your accountants, attorneys, and other professionals. And anything we can do to help you, let us know. My name is Ryan Fisher. I can be reached at 215-283-2868. My email address is rfischer, R-F-I-S-C-H-E-R, at CamaPlan.com. So I want to welcome you, Bret, and I'm going to turn this over to you to get started.
Okay.
So I know you've been a serial entrepreneur with an impressive resume in building and starting various businesses. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your career path?
Sure. Yeah, so it's kind of been an interesting career path. By the way, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm originally from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I went to school at James Madison University, got a degree in economics, got my MBA from George Washington University, was a stockbroker for about 7 years with Legg Mason. Always had a yearning to have my own company, my own business. Late 1980s, I went out on my own with a client of mine from the brokerage days who's a telecom engineer. We started a telecommunications company that had offices worldwide. We were heavy duty in the AT&T 900 paper call industry. What I loved about that business was the cash flow, how the cash flow would come into our company. AT&T would pay us before they actually received payment from their customers. And then from there, I went into the ringtone business. I was an early entree into the ringtone business. Through my experience in living abroad in Europe, I got turned on to mobile technology, and I brought that concept back to the U.S., and I was one of the early pioneers in the downloadable ringtone space. And then from there, I started a mobile technology company called Advanced Mobile that was acquired in 2013. Worked for that company. It was a NASDAQ company, Auto Bytel, out of Irvine, California. When they acquired us, I had a 3-year employment agreement. It was the toughest 3 years of my life, just kind of confined to working for a large corporation. So when I burned off those 3 years, or during that course of time, I made an investment in a company called YesLender, which was in the merchant cash advance space, making small amount fundings on a short-term basis to small businesses. So when I left Auto Bytel, the company who acquired my mobile technology firm, when I left them in 2016, I went full-time in YesLender. I professionalized it, and I really dug in and got my arms around the business and then what exactly we were doing. So within a few months of doing that, I bought out the other 2 co-investors who co-founded the company with me. I bought them out, and I brought in some new investors since then, and we haven't looked back since. So where I am today, this is my 5th small business that I've owned and operated. This is by far my most exciting. In terms of the upside, in terms of timing for this industry, I'm really, really excited, and I'm looking forward to sharing more information with everybody on this call.
Great, thanks, Bret. I just also want to let everybody know there is a questions chat box, so if you do have a question, you're welcome to put it in there. If we have time, we'll have Bret answer those for you guys as well. So tell me about your company today, YesLender LLC. When did it start? How has it evolved over the years? And what YesLender actually does?
Okay, so Ryan, just want to do a technical check. So you can see my screen with the
Yes.
YesLender and market opportunity? Okay, great.
Correct.
So So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So YesLender started really in earnest in January of 2015. At my recommendation, we did not get into the direct funding space initially because I said to the other two owners, I said, listen, before we start giving money out to small businesses and making mistakes, let's kind of learn the lay of the land, how other funders underwrite, what niches they have specialized in. So let's become a lead broker and provide leads to these companies and learn the industry by being partners with them. And I should also mention that I have a background in the lead gen space as well. So that's exactly what we did for really the first 2 years, 2015 and 2016. We were what you call an ISO, an independent sales organization, and we were distributing leads of small businesses that were looking for funding to various merchant cash advance companies. So that's kind of how we started out. And what's interesting is that when I went full time with the company in September of 2016, by early 2017, we morphed and we evolved into becoming a direct funder ourselves. And the irony today is we're a 100% direct funder, and we're almost 100% reliant on ISOs for our leads. So we kind of flipped the tables 180 degrees from being 100% ISO and providing leads to direct funders. Now we're a direct funder, and we're utilizing other ISOs to provide us with leads. So anyway, that's real quick, overview of how we got into the business. The merchant cash advance industry is the industry in which YesLender operates. We do not provide loans. We provide, essentially, we're buying a percentage of future estimated receivables from the small business. So we're essentially enabling a small business to monetize an asset that has not yet even materialized yet. So we look at the business's bank financials, look at their cash flow, estimate what we believe are going to be future receivables. We'll buy a percentage of those future receivables, and in exchange, we'll give the merchant a lump sum of money up front. Our funding box is that we never go past a year, so everything is under a year, short term. Our average funding amount is roughly $30,000. So we're not taking any big bets. And our average duration or term is somewhere around 7.5 months. Okay, back to you, Ryan.
Great. So what does it actually take to be successful in the merchant cash advance business?
Well, there's 4 legs to the stool to be successful in this business. I always say that if you can be really good at all 4 of these things, you'll be incredibly successful, because please keep in mind that this industry, it's probably maybe the second inning, the top of the second inning of a 9-inning game. So there's so much opportunity and there's so much demand from small businesses for working capital that it's absolutely incredible. So the 4 legs of the stool that you need to be good at in order to be successful are as follows. Number 1 is you need deal flow. You need to have the leads, of small businesses looking for funding. Number 2 is underwriting. You need to be discerning as to who you choose to give money to and who you choose not to. And I have a saying, you can never be good enough at underwriting. The third is capital. Let's face it, it's a capital-intensive business. We're issuing, a lot of money every day, out to small businesses. So it's you need access to capital. And then the 4th leg is really collections. It's probably the smaller of the legs, but it's still very important, because we're managing risk. At the end of the day, what we do every day here at YesLender is manage risk. And invariably, you have defaults, and you have customers that need to be modified, that you need to work through, their issues. So you need to be skilled, at the art of collections and working with merchants that could be troubled. So those are the four areas to be successful in our industry. And again, if you can do what, if you're really good at all four of those, there's no limit to the opportunity and how big you and successful you can be in this space.
Great. So what makes YesLender so special, and why are you so passionate about it?
Well, Ryan, the reason I'm really passionate about this business is that, as I mentioned from the start, is I'm a serial entrepreneur. And all my businesses have been small businesses. And I've operated businesses all over the world, not only in the US, but in Canada, in the UK, in the Czech Republic, in Taiwan, where else? The Philippines. So I really am passionate, and so is my partner, who's also an entrepreneur as well. We're really passionate about helping small businesses. And since this industry, the merchant cash advance industry, really came about after the financial, crisis of 2008, 2009. So what happened there was the traditional lending establishments, i.e. banks, pulled back even more so than they did before the financial crisis of 2008. So access to capital for small businesses was almost non-existent. So in classic capitalism, private lenders filled the void. They said, hey, you know what? We'll bear the risk, and we'll step in to fund these small businesses in need of working capital. So that's really how the merchant cash advance industry really was born, or how it was spawned. So I love that. I love helping small businesses. And the approach that probably differentiates us from much of our competitors is the approach that we take with our clients. We truly want to understand their business, understand what their challenges are, and how we can be partners with them to help them be successful. So though we are, in fact, providing them funding that they're paying us back for, I sometimes get the feeling that we're really effectively taking an equity stake on a short-term basis in these companies. So we try to get to know the owners. We try to assist them in other ways outside of providing them with funds, but also providing them with some counseling, with some marketing ideas, with my marketing background, and other areas and ways we can help them be successful. So we're passionate about helping small businesses, extremely passionate, and we really feel a kind of a kinship with our clientele.
Great. So how big is the market opportunity for small business funding?
Well, if you take a look at this slide, I intentionally put this slide up for everyone while I was speaking. It's kind of, in a thumbnail, distills it down as to the market opportunity. There are roughly 30 million small businesses in the United States. And according to various reports from On Deck, who is probably the largest, or one of the largest companies in our space who are publicly traded, ONDK, according to their research, they feel that there's between really 80 to, they say, as high as 120 billion potential unmet funding needs among small businesses. So the opportunities is absolutely incredible. So according to the slide here, there's 30 million small businesses, roughly half have a need for funds. Very few are going to be able to qualify for traditional bank lending, for a traditional bank term loan. And keep in mind that one of the advantages of a merchant cash advance company is that we're not asking for P&Ls, for balance sheets, cash flow statements. We're making decisions within 24, 48 hours. That's how fast our underwriting turnaround is. As opposed to banks, it could be drawn out for months and months and months. In addition, banks are not going to be able to make a profit on a small business loan under 50,000 or under 100,000. It depends on what type of bank. But on our board of directors, we have a gentleman who is the former CEO of Fox Chase Bank, a small local bank here in the King of Prussia, Philadelphia market. And he's the first one to say that they didn't touch small business lending anything under 100,000. It just wasn't profitable, and it's too risky. So the opportunity is really, really big, and the share that the non-bank alternative lenders are taking out of this small business funding market is still, under 10% today. So we're still just scratching the surface, and we think by literally in under 2 years, that's going to more than double in terms of, the non-bank alternative lenders market share of the total market opportunity.
Great. So who are your competitors in this space, and what do you think makes you better than them?
Right. So as far as competitors are concerned, according to our research and attending trade shows and learning more about the industry and who are the major players, there's roughly, in our estimation, about 80 to 85 merchant cash advance companies out there who have any kind of size. But what's interesting about this industry is it's kind of a collegial industry. Because there's so much opportunity, it's not cutthroat. It's really, people, I've found, which is kind of interesting to me, being in, technology in the past and being in very hyper-competitive industries, that here, at least for now, on the merchant cash advance side of things, we're all kind of in it together. In fact, so much so that we now actually share database. We call it a deadbeat database. So when we have problem merchants or small businesses that we feel either there was fraud or what have you, we share a common database amongst one another within the industry. So we help one another to all succeed. But really what sets YesLender apart is we're not transactional. Like I said earlier, we try to get to know these merchants. We have an outreach program once a month. The first week of every month, we're making calls to all our active customers. As you can see at the top left corner, we have 120 active customers. We're calling them every month and checking in with them, just kind of taking their pulse about the business. And the reason why I think we have such a high renewal rate at 38% is because of that relationship that we try to establish and maintain with our customer base. So I believe that we're kinder, we're gentler, we treat them with courtesy and respect, and communications is really, really important to us. So that's probably what sets us apart.
Great. So risk is important to me and probably to our audience. How do you mitigate the risk?
Right. Well, that's a really good question. One of the key things is diversification. You got to diversify geographically. So as you can see, we're in 34 different states. You need to diversify by industry. We're in right now, of those 120 active customers, we're in about 25 different industries. Our largest industry, by the way, is probably retail. It's the pizza shops, it's the restaurants, ice cream shop. We work a lot with contractors, electrical contractors, plumbers. We have construction companies. We have trucking companies. We have some, not many, but we have some automotive dealerships. Mostly they're used car dealerships as opposed to new car dealerships. But diversification is really, really key. We do not have more than 3.5% of our assets in that's with any one particular merchant. So it's diversification across customers, not taking any big bets, being diversified by industry, by state, by geography, and by dollar amount. So that's really the way you have to do it. I can also share with you that I'll jump to a slide here. That this gentleman here, Glenn Foreman, who joined us full-time on January 1st, he's heading up our underwriting. And, we're part technology and we're part manual as to, making that determination to make an offer to fund or not to. But, he ran data analytics. He was the big data guy for McKinsey for 26 years. And he created within the organization a $500 million commercial business unit, really that he started from scratch. and he managed over 2,000 employees, if you can imagine that. But he's a pretty brilliant guy. He's on full time. I went to school with him. We've always maintained our friendship. It's great to have him on board. And he is very involved in two aspects of our company. One is risk mitigation using data analytics and artificial intelligence. And number two is scale. I call him my chief scaling officer, and putting the technologies in place that will enable us to efficiently scale our business. So we're really in an exciting time and an exciting industry.
Awesome. Well, while you're on your team there, and I know they're part of this, why don't you tell us what makes YesLender so successful?
Well, we started conservatively, and I believe we're still conservative. We don't chase deals, so we know what we think this merchant can handle. We know what we believe is the right amount. Keep in mind the way we get paid is through an ACH debit. In most instances, it's a daily ACH debit in which we go into the merchant's bank account, and through online banking, we pull a specific dollar amount out. Or sometimes we do weekly debits, but it's all automated. And so, that's, we call it a carry. It's a percentage of what that merchant cash advance debit represents of their total revenue. And we have now statistical models that tell us, where we can go up to for certain industries, what carry this particular company we believe can really afford without, overly encumbering that particular merchant. So I would say, what makes us successful is we started on a very conservative note. We did not get into the direct funding. We worked our way into it, took over the course of 2 years, learning the industry from other players. When we did get into it, we moved into the funding space slowly. Today, as I mentioned, we're 100% direct funder, but we're very disciplined in our lending box and who we and the merchants that we work with.
Great. So how does someone become an investor in YesLender, and why would an investor want to do this?
Right. So just so you know, all the members of this LLC that you see in front of you, those 4 individuals, including myself, we're not only equity investors where we put dollars into the company to have a piece of the rock, if you will, but we also are credit investors. So we've actually have lent money in the form of a promissory note to the company. So today, by the way, I have an announcement that we just secured and have made our first drawdown on an institutional round of $10 million. So we have a credit line from a family office that we closed on in March that is going to be very helpful over the next 12 months. So we're really, really excited about that. The money will be staged over the next 12 months, but we already had our first drawdown in April. That being said, we're still always looking for capital, and up to that point, we've always looked and relied upon private investors, and we pay anywhere from 12.5% to 15% on the money. 12.5% if you want quarterly distributions, 15% if you'll accept annual distributions. And it's only a 1 year, the promissory note is only a 1 year lockup. So to date, everybody who's done the promissory note, and when it's come due, nobody has redeemed other than one person who was my partner's former roommate from school, who said right from the start, I'm in for 1 year because that's all I can afford. And to help us get going, he gave us some money for 1 year. So he's the only one who's redeemed. But the fact of the matter is it's a 1 year lockup. It's a very competitive rate of interest that we pay. And we probably today have, I would estimate that we have probably 25, 28 private investors. And we've raised somewhere close to about $3 million from the private investors to date.
Great. I do have some questions when we end this. I just want to let people know that I will ask those to Bret once we get through these here. So what is the risk to a credit investor in your company?
Right. So it's really, at the end of the day, not only do you sign a promissory note, but you also sign a security agreement. So we'll secure your investment, your credit investment, by the assets of the company. You take precedent over any of the 4 members as well. And the assets of the company are essentially 2 things: the cash in the bank account, and it's our accounts receivable. So today we have accounts receivable of about $4.5 million. We have cash in the bank account of roughly $600,000, and we have today financial obligations of somewhere around $3 million. So you can see in a short period of time, we've already developed a nice cushion there. But Tom Petro, again, the gentleman at the bottom here, who's got the banking background, he's the gentleman who really, and he's hands-on, by the way, he's the one who's really educated us about, hey, listen, guys, you're not so much in the P&L business anymore. You're in the balance sheet business. And YesLender needs to build what he calls a fortress balance sheet. So that's exactly what we're on the quest of doing, is being very careful about our funds and how we underwrite and who we fund, but at the same time keep a reserve handy in the event that there's a downturn in the economy or things change, that we can withstand that kind of downturn and be in a position to potentially do acquisitions of other companies. So that's our mindset. We run this from a balance sheet standpoint. We run our financials very conservatively, and that's essentially how we, in addition to the other things I said about mitigating risk through diversification and being disciplined in our funding, that's how we mitigate risk.
Great. Understood. Can anyone invest in your company, Bret?
No, technically you need to be an accredited investor. And Ryan, I think you can probably elaborate on what that entails.
Yeah, if somebody has a question on that, they can talk to me on that privately. There's a few ways to qualify. So do you think this is a good investment for a self-directed plan?
I do. And a good portion of the $3 million of private investor dollars is through self-directed IRAs, including a couple of the guys you see here. So it's pretty common.
Okay, great.
Now the people the people who do the self-directed IRAs, they have, without exception, have all chosen to go with the annual distribution of 15%.
Understood. Great. Especially because people aren't using those for income most of the time.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions that came in from the audience, but while we're doing that, do you mind putting up your contact information so people can get a hold of you? Email, website, etc.
Yeah, I probably should do that. I didn't do that. So while you're speaking, I'll work something like that up.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Can you share what percentage of potential funding opportunities you turn down?
Yes, that's a very good question. So of the submissions that come in every day, and we're up to about 50 applications or submissions, we call them, that come in every day, we make offers on roughly somewhere around 1 out of 5, so about 20%. So of those 1 out of 5, roughly 15% will get funded. So 15% of 20%. So we're somewhere around 1 out of every 40 applications that come in will end up funding.
Okay. The next question was, you mentioned the 4 legs of the stool to be successful in the merchant cash advance space. How would you rate YesLender's performance in each of those 4 areas?
Oh boy, that's a great question. On the underwriting side, our default rate, as you saw earlier, was 6%. That is way below the industry norms. The industry average is somewhere between 12 to 15%. And just keep in mind, bear in mind that, a banker who runs over 1% bad debt rate is going to have probably the regulators crawling all over them. So, in our business, a bad debt rate of somewhere under 10% is outstanding. So I would say where we're very, very strong is underwriting. And as I said, you never be good enough, and we're constantly, working to be better and better at that at all times, and learn from our mistakes. Mistakes happen. It's inevitable. We do postmortems, heavy-duty postmortems on accounts that have gone wrong. So that's one. On the deal flow side of things, ideally, where I would like to see the blend would be 50. It would be a third. Would be a third would come in through the ISO channel, which today is roughly 100%. Well, I should say it's roughly 65%. 35% is from renewals. So I would like to see within a couple years that a third would come in through the ISOs, a third would come in through us originating our own leads, and a third would be from renewal business. So today we do roughly 65% of our advances are from ISOs on the first time basis. The balance of 35% are renewals. So I'm happy with our renewal rate, but where we need to start focusing is on the organic lead gen. I have a background in that. I've done it before for this industry, but being an experienced entrepreneur and never having a failure, my view was the first thing, job one, was we need to really shore up our underwriting and get good at that before we start branching off into other areas. On the capital raise side, I would say we've always been on the weak end. I would give us a not as good of a rating on that, because it's key to have an institutional partner. We now have landed our first institutional partner. We're real excited about that. So I'd give us our grade probably a B minus in that area. And then on the collection side, collections is an art. It's not so much of a science, and we're learning all the time as to how we can be better at that.
Okay, great. One more question. I'm not sure if this got cleared up. It was early on. I'm not sure where you were in your presentation, but the question was, how is that not a loan? Why make the distinction?
Yes, that's another great question. It's not a loan for a number of reasons. First, contractually, we're saying, listen, we're buying a percentage of your future receivables. So if your receivables go down, then the amount that you, the merchant, is paying us, therefore should decrease, because it's on a percentage basis. And that happens every day, all the time. So yeah, we like to see it never change, but the reality is that it does change, because, hey, things ebb and flow on the cash flow side of things for the small business. So what that means is that there's no finite term to ours. So that's why it's almost impossible to put in an annual percentage rate on our funding, on the funding amounts, because we don't know what that term is. We have people that, we set out to fund them on a 6-month basis, and we're a year and a half into it, and they're still paying. So what that means is that we had to modify that daily or weekly payment to accommodate their situation. So that's really the primary reason and then the other reason is, people say, well, on the collections front, what's actually involved there? Well, you need to know that if the business legitimately goes out of business, then, we have no recourse. We have zero recourse. This is unsecured money that we're giving out. Now, if there's a bad act and they're trying to hide those receivables from us, that's a whole different story. So hopefully that answers the question why this is not a loan, but rather it's a cash advance against future receivables.
Okay, and before we run out of time here, I'm going to ask you two more questions. Okay, great. I was waiting for you to get your information up. Some people were asking for your phone number. So this is pretty quick. Do you have a minimum amount someone has to invest?
50,000.
Okay, great. Next question is, what is the backlog of potential funding opportunities that go unfunded by YesLender because you have insufficient funds to lend?
Right. Capital has been a gating item for us at times. So we've had to kind of turn the spigot off a little bit on the deal flow side to kind of match up to our ability to fund. So we've been, my partner Greg Clower and I, kind of shake our heads that we've never had a situation where we've actually had to say, no, we can't fund this because, we just don't have the capital. What we do is we dial down, the submission flow, or we ratchet up, our parameters, our funding parameters, so to filter even more of those submissions. So it's been, in the past, because when we were relying on pure private dollars, we've had to do that to regulate that deal flow at certain times in order to make it commensurate to our funding ability. We have not had that concern, I would say, probably in the last 8 to 9, maybe 10 months. We just, we've always had ample funds to keep up with the deal flow. But we just had a morning meeting on it today, this morning. We are going to turn on some additional ISOs, some very large ISOs who've been asking us to have us participate with them in their deal flow that we've been holding at bay, and we're going to open up some of those channels now. And our deal flow literally can go from 100 submissions a day. We think it's going to jump to 75, potentially to 100. So we're in a great position right now to ratchet that up. I like our controlled growth that we've had. I do not like uncontrolled growth. And we believe that we have the people now in place. We have some of the technology in place to really scale this business in a thoughtful, measured way.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Bret. I think there were some more detailed questions, so I want to encourage, anybody who needs more details to contact Bret. And if you need help getting set up using qualified funds from your IRAs or qualified plans, I'll help you get that done. It's a pretty simple process. Again, I can be reached at 215-283-2868. My emails are fisher@camaplan.com, RFISCHER at CAMAPLAN.com. Thanks for everything, Bret. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it as well. Take care.
All right. Everyone have a great rest of the afternoon.
Have a great day, and thank you, everybody, for participating on this call. Much appreciated.
Bye.